will finally be like like we've always wanted to be, body responsive to spirit, head and heart together, total person in union with Jesus Christ, and enjoying the great vision of God. It would be a fulfillment of all that we ever wanted to be for us. So what are we saying here? Christ brings salvation to us as we walk this earth, but we are able to receive it only in a partial, limited, and incomplete way. Our great hope is that we will have a total salvation someday. And we say that's what heaven is all about. It is to be at the banquet, the heavenly banquet, to be in the great city of Jerusalem, to be united with Jesus Christ, to be with our loved ones, to be in a community of love, and to be totally healed and integrated. That really is what it means to say that Christ is the Savior, that He's the bringer of salvation. Well, that's my attempt to analyze now from a more rational, systematic side what salvation is all about based on this story of the paralytic. I think it's a rich kind of story, and it brings up many ideas. What I'd like you to do now is to just take a couple minutes to talk to one another, or to form into small groups, or maybe to write in your journal. And I would like you to try to respond to what I said, this analysis. Try to see what part of the analysis makes sense to you. Why don't you try to say to some other person now what it actually means to you in your life now and with your future dreams. What does it mean to say that Christ is Savior for you? Okay, at this point what I would like to do is to try to tell another story and to see what other lessons we can get out of that story about what it means to say that Jesus is the bringer of salvation, that He is the Savior. I'm very indebted in this analysis to Bernie Tyrrell, the Jesuit theologian, who's written the excellent book Christotherapy. But it's the story now of the cure of the Gerasene demoniac. Find it in Mark 5, Matthew 8, and Luke 8. And I like to try to tell it this time from the viewpoint of a friend of the of this demoniac, and to see sort of this friend is sort of an amateur psychologist. Maybe that will help us to get into the story. So we try to get behind his eyes now, and we have to really use our imaginations to make this thing work. So the friend is talking now, and he's saying, you know, it is so difficult dealing with my friend. The man is psychotic. He's mentally ill. I can hardly deal with him at all. He won't conform to any of the conventions. He wears no clothes. He runs around naked. At times we have to try to constrain him. I feel terrible in having to do that, but there's no other choice. But you would not believe the fantastic strength that he has. It's just amazing. You can hardly hold him down. It takes a number of us to constrain him. And my friend, sadly, is self-destructive. You know, he takes stones and hits himself with them. He bruises himself. Poor fellow can't sleep. No wonder he's in this state. He's a total insomniac. He's up all night. Well, it's just a terrible time dealing with him. His family is just so sad. None of us really know what to do with him. I mean, he's obviously mentally ill, psychotic, and it's just a difficult situation. Well, one day we were standing near the shore of the lake, and here comes this group of people, and out steps this fellow we recognize as Jesus of Nazareth. And no sooner does he walk out of the boat and get on the shore, but my friend breaks away from us, runs out, and sort of just begins to stare at Jesus. Well, you can tell that my friend is sort of fascinated by him, and at the same time terrified, as he usually is, of strangers. And this Jesus, he takes a quick look at him, and he just suddenly blurts out, he says, "Come out of him, you unclean spirit." Well, it's strange. I mean, he must have looked at his face and saw that he had mental problems and so on. You know, to me it was almost as though he was saying to the guy, look, stop all this foolishness, get off of it, quit the game playing, just face reality, put your clothes on, and start acting like a normal human being. It was an attempt to get a quick cure, it seemed to me, and yet, sadly, it didn't work. You know, I was sitting there hoping that just maybe he'll respond to this Jesus, but no, he really didn't. It doesn't work. My friend was just scared, and his response was, Jesus, Son of the Most High God, don't torment me. And when he said that, I had this impression that his defense mechanisms were up, that he was in great psychic pain, that he had great fears. He just couldn't do this, that Jesus said, give up these demons, give up this crazy way of life. It was like he was just terribly afraid, and he had to put his defense mechanisms up and make them more intense. And yet at the same time, by his phrase, Jesus, Son of the Most High, he seemed to recognize that here was a man that might be able to help him, that this Jesus had a power, and he was interested in what was going to happen. Well, I was watching all this. I mean, it was just amazing to see this interaction. You've had the impression now that Jesus, after this first effort didn't work, that he was going to try again. And sure enough, he did. He said to the guy, to my friend, well, what is your name? I wasn't sure what it meant. Was he trying to get closer to him, enter into a personal relationship with him? No, it was very confusing. But then the answer my friend just blurted out an answer. He said, my name is Legion. And there it was that we began to see more clearly. My friend was suffering from multiple personalities. He had a legion of devils in him. He had all kind of demons that really were assailing him. And it's saying, my guess is that Jesus at this point was trying to get my friend to face reality. He wanted him to face up to the situation he was really in. He wanted him to name his demons, to look at the darkness inside of him, to face this multiple personality situation that he was in. And I think it was at that point that the demons felt exposed. The demons couldn't stand this whole business. And I think that, the way I would interpret this is that Jesus had my friend do some imaginative therapy at this point. He said to him, those demons can go out of you. You just have to imagine getting rid of them. And what he told him, he says, now imagine those demons rushing out of you. Imagine them going into a herd of swine. Imagine now the herd of swine is just going to run pell-mell towards the cliff, and they're going to run and they're going to go right over the cliff, and all those demons will be destroyed. I saw it as a really clever type of imaginative therapy to get my friend to see that those demons were manageable, that they could be gotten rid of, that he could achieve a greater integration in his life. And sure enough, the cure worked like that. This imaginative therapy, my friend suddenly calmed down. The next thing you know, Jesus is sitting there. My friend is now fully clothed. He's calmed down. He's in his right mind. He's sitting at the feet of Jesus. And they're talking like friends. And Jesus, I think, is obviously telling him that he has to gain insight into what has happened. It's not enough that he got rid of the demons. He wants him to understand the dynamics, how it happened. He wants him to show him that the key was facing reality, was bringing the shadow side of his own character and personality into the light. That's what was really going on. Interesting reaction at this point to the townspeople. They were afraid. They come in and they saw this fellow my friend, who had always been out of control, sitting there. And it was too much for them. I figured they would have to relate to him in a new way now, and they didn't know how to do that. They were bothered. Their first reaction is, get out. They told Jesus to leave the country. They didn't want to have anything to do with him. But my friend couldn't get enough of Jesus. He begged him to stay, wanted to be with him. He was feeling so indebted to Jesus. And yet Jesus would not allow it. He was not about to let him become dependent on him. He says to him, now you have to go out and help others. You got to use what you learned. It seemed to me a brilliant bit of therapy on Jesus' part. He recognized the transference that was going on, and he said, we just can't have this. You've got to learn to be independent, and you have to go out and help others. And so it was that he did. He went out and spread the good news, and it's been an amazing story to me, and all of the townspeople just marveled at the power of Jesus to be able to cure my friend who had seemed to be in such a terrible psychotic state that we would never be able to pull him out of it. Well, there's sort of a fanciful, imaginative reading of this whole business of the cure of the Gerasene demoniac. There's a whole lot of things I think we can draw from that. I'd like you to meditate on the story sometime when you have time and see what it might tell you. But let me just quickly draw out a few things for you. Jesus is the healer of us now. And I think he does it by establishing a personal relationship with us. He calls us by name. He's our friend and our brother, and we can count on it. And he tries to get us involved in an insight therapy, I think. First of all, he tells us that the demons are manageable. The dark forces cannot destroy us. That we can bring the shadow side of our existence into our consciousness. It won't overwhelm us. It's a way of saying that grace is stronger than all the demons. I like to call it sort of an enlightenment therapy. He gets us to see through the illusions, the fears, and to face ourselves. He tells us if you can just face reality, you'll find out that it is manageable. So that Christ is the healer for us. He brings salvation to us here and now because he frees us up to be ourselves. Tells us that we're okay just as we are. That's the good, beautiful news that he gives us. He tells us that what we got to do is name our demons. We got to be able to say, I'm an alcoholic. I'm jealous. I don't deal well with authority. I can't control my tongue. We have to be able to face that, look at it, and once we do that, then there is the possibility of healing for us. The other thing I get out of this is that healing is gradual. It doesn't come all at once to the Gerasene demoniac. Sometimes it takes time. We have to try different methods. We have to realize we won't be perfect tomorrow. It doesn't just happen that simply. You got to work at it. There's a rhythm to it. You got to follow the rhythms of our own lives. Christ calls us by name, step by step. We can't expect to have it all together immediately. Jesus cures us, but very often it is done gradually. And finally, that raises the whole question of a final sense of healing and salvation for us. Jesus Christ is not just a therapist. He's brought salvation to the whole world. He's the cosmic Savior. He's placed the seeds of the final victory in this world of ours. He is the one who has responded totally to God. He's gone ahead of us to prepare a place for us. He goes to destroy the demons finally, once and for all, that our fate is to be in heaven with the Lord, to be with him forever, where we enjoy the kind of integration and wholeness that only he can bring. And so that our sense is, therefore, that salvation is final and complete for us, that death is a passageway into this new and richer life. Well, I would like you now to look at that, all of that, and to try to analyze it. Try to see especially how Christ calls upon you to face the demons in your own life. Try to see what the dark forces are and to realize that Christ has power to heal. I'd like you to either write now in your journal or talk one-to-one or in small groups, and especially to try to share as much as you can about how Christ is the bringer of salvation to you, how he enables you to face the dark side of your own existence.